Good morning, everyone. Uh, so we have finished the different special senses, that is, sense of taste, sense of smell, and sense of vision. Now we are going to the sense of hearing. So today's topic is sense of hearing. So in this topic, you should know the functional anatomy of the ear, and then you should know the auditory pathway, and then how the hearing is perceived and how it is traveled, how these sensations are carried to the central nervous system, and what are all the disorders of hearing. So all these things you should know. Today's topic is functional anatomy of the ear and the auditory pathway. So these are the learning objectives from today's topic. That is, you should learn what is the external ear, what is the internal ear, what is the middle ear, and what are all the contents present in these different types of ear, and what is the auditory pathway, how this hearing is carried. So this is the structure of the ear. The mechanism of hearing is closely associated with the mechanism of equilibrium. That means our ear acts is not only for the hearing purpose, but the the parts which are present in the ear are also responsible for the mechanism of equilibrium. So this one thing you should know. And now the ear is the structure of the ear, showing the different parts. The first is external ear, and then the middle ear, and the last one is the internal ear. So the external ear, so you can see in the diagram, it's having the two important parts, that is the pinna or ear auricle, and then the external auditory meatus. You can see here ear canal, it's mentioned here, it as ear canal. And then you can see in the diagram outer ear. So this is the part, the pinna or the auricle. This is nothing but it's a elastic, it's made up of elastic cartilage covered by the skin and is tightly attached to the perichondrium. What is this function? In few animals, this pinna, it moves towards the direction of the sound source, whereas in humans it does not moves. It moves to the direction of the sounds, and the function is it collects and reflects the sound waves into the external auditory canal. That is the function of the pinna. Okay, so it collects the sound waves and it reflects the sound waves to the external auditory canal. That is the function of the pinna. Whereas the external auditory canal, you can see in the diagram, external auditory meatus or ear canal, it extends from the pinna to the tympanic membrane. You can see, so this is the external auditory meatus. So this ear canal, so it extends up to the ear drum, or it is also called the tympanic membrane. So this portion is called the external auditory meatus. It's having the two parts again, that is outer one third and the inner two thirds. So outer one third is just a cartilage, whereas inner two thirds is made up of bony portions. So it's lined with the skin. So this, which in this part secretes wax and oil. So this is about the external ear. Next we'll go to the middle ear. The middle ear is a rectangular shape structure, whereas it's covered with all the four sides and it's having a roof and a floor. So it is a six-sided rectangular shaped cavity, tympanic cavity, which is filled with air. So it's having a roof, it's having a floor, and it's having a lateral wall, medial wall, anterior and posterior. So now we'll see what are all these walls, how it is formed, and what is the function, what it contains and what its function. So this is the diagram which is showing the middle ear. So we'll go to the next slide. So once again I'll just repeat it. So I told you that this is not only for the hearing, it's also for the equilibrium, and it's having three parts. Okay, so this is the diagram. We'll go to the next diagram which shows the middle ear, contents of the middle ear properly. So I already told about the external ear. Okay, so this is the middle ear. You can see here the middle ear is having, one second, yeah, so this is the diagram which shows the middle ear properly. So the middle ear, it's having, as told you, it's a six-sided tympanic cavity filled with air, and we'll see what are all its contents and how it is covered. The lateral wall is formed by the, you can see here, the external auditory canal, so ends in with the tympanic membrane. So the lateral wall of the middle ear is formed by the tympanic membrane or the ear drum. So it's a cave shaped structure with concavity directed towards the external auditory meatus, and the maximum convexity we call it as UMBO. So this is about the lateral wall. Next, see the anterior wall. You can see here the pharyngotympanic tube. That means the anterior wall is made up of two things. The one is the upper one, there we have one muscle, that is the tensor tympani, whereas the lower one, the anterior wall of the middle cavity contains, it's having the lower one having the eustachian tube. So this tube is also called pharyngotympanic tube, connects the middle ear cavity with the pharynx. So the advantage of this tube is that the air can pass through this tube into the middle ear. So it serves as the function of equalization of pressure on two sides of the tympanic membrane. For example, when there is a common cold, so when there is inflammation or when there is some sort which closes this tube, which obstructs this tube, when this is blocked, so what will happen, the air cannot pass into the tympanic cavity. So the air present in the middle ear gets absorbed by the mucous membrane, and the tympanic membrane is retracted inwards. As a result, there will be loss of hearing because there will be loss of vibration of the tympanic membrane, and there will be loss of hearing. So that is the importance of this eustachian tube. And the posterior wall is made up of the middle ear that communicates with the air cavities in the mastoid process, and then the medial wall is the important one. Medial wall is having, in the diagram you can see, it's having a round window and the oval window. So this is the main thing which are present in the medial wall. So these two windows, oval window is also called fenestra vestibuli, is present above, and then the round window is present in the lower. So in the oval window, in which foot plate is attached, it leads to the vestibule of the internal ear, and this transmits the sound vibrations of the ossicles to the perilymph of scala vestibuli. So this is important. You can see here the ossicles. Okay, you can see in the diagram the round window and then the ossicles. Ossicles is nothing but these are the bones which are present in the middle ear. So these are malleus, incus and stapes. So here you can see the oval window, the foot plate of stapes is attached. So this attachment leads to the vestibule of the internal ear and transmits the sound vibrations of the ossicles to the perilymph of the scala vestibuli. That is the importance of the oval window. The round window which is present here, you can see here in the diagram, in the lower part, and is closed by a thin membrane called secondary tympanic membrane. So this function is it accommodates the pressure waves transmitted to the perilymph of the scala tympani. So this is the medial wall. That means the middle ear is wedged between the external ear and the internal ear. So you have the lateral side, you have the external ear, and the medial side you have the internal ear. Okay, so anterior you have two structures, one is tensor tympani and eustachian tube. Posterior you just have communicates with the air cavities in the mastoid process. And now you see the roof and the floor. So roof is formed by a thin bone called the tegmen tympani of the petrous temporal bone, and separates the middle ear from the middle cranial fossa. Next, the floor of the middle ear is formed by the bone, convex plate of the bone, which separates the middle ear from the jugular fossa. So in this fossa, the superior bulb of the internal jugular vein travels. So it will be separated by this fossa by a convex plate of bone. So this is about the walls of the middle ear. Then what is present, I already mentioned. So it's having the ossicles, malleus, incus and stapes. So these three are very important. They are attached to each other by ligaments and form a chain. So you can see here these are the malleus, incus and stapes. So the malleus, it resembles a mallet hammer and consists of a head, neck and three processes: the handle, the lateral and anterior process. So the handle of the malleus is connected to the inner surface of the tympanic membrane. You can appreciate in this diagram that the malleus is connected to the tympanic membrane, and the head articulates with the incus. So the incus is the middle ossicle that resembles an anvil in shape. So it consists of a body and two processes. The body of incus articulates with the head of malleus. Then the stapes, you can see in the diagram, it resembles a stirrup. So its head articulates with the incus, and the oval foot plate contacts the membrane of the oval window of the cochlea, medial wall. So this is about the contents of the middle ear. That is the ossicles. So you can see here clearly in this diagram. So you can see the malleus. So how it's having the head. So what are the parts? It's having a head, and then two process, lateral and anterior process. So head of the malleus is connected to the incus, whereas the handle of the malleus is connected to the tympanic membrane. Okay, so and you can see here anteriorly the eustachian tube below, and the above it's having the muscle tensor tympani. And then you can see here in the ossicle, incus is having the part, that is it's having a body and two process. So body is connected to the malleus, and the process is connected to the stapes. And then the stapes, you can see in the diagram the stapes. So this stapes is connected to the oval window through its process. So this is about the middle ear cavity, and I have to mention about the muscles of the middle ear. So the muscles of the middle ear are, so one you can see in this diagram is the tensor tympani and also stapedius muscle. You can see both the muscles in this diagram. So the tensor tympani, it arises from the wall of the semicanal for tensor tympani and is inserted to the handle of the malleus. So it is inserted to the handle of the malleus, and it's the nerve supply to this is by the fifth cranial nerve, that is the trigeminal nerve. So the mandibular division of the trigeminal nerve supplies this muscle. So it constantly pulls the handle of the malleus. Its function is to pulls the handle of the malleus inwards, and thus keeps the tympanic membrane tensed. So due to this, vibrations on any portion of the tympanic membrane are transmitted to the malleus. And the function of stapedius, the stapedius muscle, it arises from the posterior wall of the middle ear and is inserted on the neck of stapes. You can see in the diagram, innervated by the facial nerve, and this function is on contraction of this, it pulls the foot plate of stapes out from the oval window. Okay, this is about the contents of the middle. You may get the question, the contents of the middle ear, for 5 marks. So you should mention about the ossicles, and you should mention about the muscles. You can mention about the eustachian tube. Contents means mainly the muscles and the ossicles. So the function of these two muscles, okay, act simultaneously. These both muscles of the middle ear act simultaneously and reflexly in response to the loud sound and attenuate the sound. So this is about the middle ear. So you can just have a look at the this slide. I already mentioned all these things, and the ossicles, opposite. Okay, so this is also the diagram which shows this. Also I already mentioned eustachian tube which connects the middle ear cavity with the nasopharynx. So muscles I mentioned. Okay, so this is about the external ear and the middle ear. Next we'll go to the, I'll just mention what are all the things which are present in the inner ear, and in the tomorrow class we'll discuss in detail about the inner ear and then auditory pathway. So the inner ear or internal ear is present on the lateral side of the, that is it is present on the lateral side of the middle ear. So it consists of a bony labyrinth and the membranous labyrinth. So the bony labyrinth, it consists of three parts: vestibule, and then semicircular canals and the cochlea. Whereas the membranous labyrinth is lodged within the bony labyrinth. So we'll see these things about in the next class. So I already mentioned that the external ear, middle ear and the cochlea of the inner ear are concerned with hearing, whereas the semicircular canals, the other parts of the inner ear, are mainly for the equilibrium. Okay, thank you. So tomorrow we'll discuss about the remaining parts of the inner ear and the auditory pathway. Thank you.